Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I rise today to talk a little bit about Black History Month and some history in the 44th District. There's a little community in the 44th District called Gum Springs, and I want to talk some about Gum Springs' relationship with Herb Harris, who's a congressman who recently departed. Gum Springs is well known because it has a history that traces itself back to George Washington. George Washington, of course, was the only one of our founding fathers out of all of them who freed all of his slaves, all 314 of them, upon his death. This is a community that's been featured in the New York Times. It's the oldest historically black community in Fairfax County. It was founded in 1829, about 34 years before the Emancipation Proclamation, by a guy named Wes Ford. Wes Ford was a slave who served at the Mount Vernon estate. And he was deeded 211 acres of land by General Washington's nephew, Bushrod Washington. That community then became a haven for African-American families in the Fairfax County, Northern Virginia area. And at the time when Ford died, he deeded it, or he willed it to his family. 12 different other families also lived in that community. The center of it was a place called Bethlehem Baptist Church, and there was also a little school there called Gum Springs School, which was started in 1876 by Quakers. And the community also became a haven because of that access they had to education right there in that community, which was not easy back when our schools were desegregated, and we also didn't have much of a public school system. In 1937, even, after the state began to provide public education, Fairfax County did not have a black high school, and the community rallied itself and organized to get a bus, a publicly paid-for bus, so that people in Gum Springs could drive 25 miles to Manassas, which is where the only public high school was at the time. Eventually, Fairfax County built a modern school in 1955. Not until 1955 did the county build a modern school in that community. And after desegregation, it was turned into a community center. But the community still lacked a lot of basic amenities, notwithstanding the surrounding suburbanization. Almost probably about, 50 to 60,000 people had moved in the area surrounding Gum Springs into modern suburban communities, but Gum Springs itself remained unimproved. In 1968, Herb Harris, the future congressman, was elected to the County Board of Supervisors. And this is only 3 years before I was born, but at the time, Gum Springs lacked a lot of basic amenities that all of us take for granted today. And as the Mount Vernon District Supervisor at the time, he invested in Martin Luther King Jr. Park, which is a 20-acre park that was created just in that community. They also constructed the county's first public swimming pool, which back then was a brand new thing. They constructed a county water tower to end water shortages in the community, which they were suffering from, unlike everybody else who surrounded them. They built stormwater runoff facilities to prevent flooding in the community. Flooding was a recurrent problem. They also got the streets paved. There's this one community right in the middle of all Fairfax County suburbs that didn't have any paved streets. They also got installed storm sewers and sanitary sewers because at the time, many of the people who lived in that community still had outhouses, even though the rest of the county, all surrounding it, had modern sanitary facilities. And today, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to report that Gum Springs is a thriving community. Herb Harris went on to be elected to the United States Congress in the Watergate class in 1974. He was sworn in 75 and served for 6 years. Today, Gum Springs has 2,500 residents. About 500 of the people who live there now can trace their lineage back to the original settlers of Gum Springs when Wes Ford set it up. And on December 24th, our former congressman, Herb Harris, passed away. But he played a significant part in making Gum Springs a thriving and modern part with modern infrastructure part of Fairfax County. And I think this story just serves for all of us to remember that a lot of times we still leave communities behind, and it's important that we bring everybody forward when the rest of the community comes forward, that everybody have modern infrastructure. And if it wasn't for leaders like Congressman Herb Harris, these folks would not have joined the same quality of life as the rest of us in Fairfax County. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.